So I know it's like the end of the winter, and usually I would take this time to just catch up on games from the previous year that I've fallen behind on, Steam sale stuff, but lately I just can't help but play old games again, and I went back to Conker's Bad Fur Day. More specifically, I've been replaying the remake version, Conker Live and Reloaded, that was released for the original Xbox. And I figured make a video, because I had adored this game as a kid, probably way too young to play it, and I think it's an interesting game to talk about in 2021, big time. So the deal with Conker, it's really interesting, first of all, because it's a Rare game. Rare at the time with Nintendo 64, they were like the golden goose of the console. They had given us some Donkey Kong games, we got Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye, and then towards the tail end of the console's life, we got Conker. Essentially what it was is a character they had previously briefly introduced in, I think, Diddy Kong Racing. And they were working on a game for him, and they came out with like a Game Boy game. That was weird, Conker's Pocket Tales. And then they apparently rebooted and scrapped it because he was so generic and they didn't know what to do. So they ended up finally making this beautiful shit show disaster of a game that is basically like Who Framed Roger Rabbit in video game form. I'm really happy that this game exists. I don't think this game could exist in this form today, but it's like this very special gem that I think is worth highlighting because it's completely busted, it's crude, it hasn't aged well, but it's still worth checking out just because of how freaking unique it is.
I think she bought it. Conker, put the phone down. Oh, right. Who's round with it? Yours. What, again? Okay.
So, like I said, it's pretty much like a Who Framed Roger Rabbit type thing. You are an alcoholic squirrel in a regular happy-go-lucky video game world that more and more, the more you play, devolves into just kind of like a madhouse. All this really works, I think, because it's got this good blend of humor. It's very, like, crass, Looney Tunes style humor, but with a dash of, at the time, which was very popular, stuff like when South Park was rising up, so it's very rude, it's very gross, it's very adolescent, it's also incredibly self-aware, the characters will acknowledge the camera, they'll look at the camera, they'll even make video game and video game industry jokes. Extremely cynical, but just really, really good because of the dash of British humor. It's a British development studio, and if you're into UK humor, something like a Monty Python type of deal, you'd probably vibe with a lot of this. It just has that kind of tongue-in-cheek factor to all of it that makes it extra special.
Hey, Mr. Designer. No more surprises, please.
I think a lot of that is to the voice acting, which I wouldn't say it's good, but I think for what it is, what it's set out to do, it works perfectly well. A lot of it has this weird whispery tone to it. It sounds like half the voice actors had to record this in the closet somewhere where their mom couldn't hear.
I'm sure that's of some significance. I don't think what it is. Anyway, my hairdo.
It's very odd how it all comes across, but it works, especially with a lot of the characters that are a bit more unconventional, especially because a lot of them sound like they're trying to do American accents. But the interesting thing, I guess we should dive into it. So the gameplay you're seeing here, a lot of this is the remake version, which is actually more censored than the original Nintendo 64 version. The Nintendo 64 version let a lot of curse words fly, where the Xbox version is like kind of censored, and a lot of people had issues with that. I think me, as like a shitty angsty teen, I probably had issues with it too. I'm like, come on, man. But now, like playing it back again, the bleeps are actually kind of funny. The way they mask things, I kind of appreciated it. But it just really works best of all with Conker, who isn't as foul-mouthed and still manages to be the most wholesome of a lot of the characters in the game, but at the same time has a lot of human-like qualities. He has vices, he has lust, he has greed, he has alcoholism, and it makes for some really weird scenarios, and that's really the game as a whole, how it devolves. I think still playing it back today, I'm amazed how like well-paced it is, how it moves. There's a lot of times where it doesn't tell you what to do, and you have to backtrack, and you might find yourself kind of stuck for a while, and a lot of the bosses are not clear at all, but that's how it was. And the way it moves forward, as you move forward, there's always something new. First, you're in like a cartoonish land, then you move into a poop world, where everything is made of poop, and it stinks. You see what I'm getting? This is the game, I'm sorry. Kind of like caveman, prehistoric dinosaur world, and they even acknowledge how that doesn't even make sense in that existing universe. Then you kind of go over to haunted house style area where you are literally Van Helsing, Bloodborne style trenchcoat dude killing zombies, and you go into a haunted mansion, and that haunted mansion has a squirrel that is a vampire, and it's like a parody of Gary Oldman's Dracula, which is now a dated reference, but if you're a movie fan, you'll still probably appreciate it. And the game has a lot of stuff like that as it just continues to move forward. By the end of the game, there is a Matrix lobby shootout scene, Saving Private Ryan World War II scenes, and it all ends with a big bang aping the original Alien in like a stupid way. And because it's so consistently paced like that, it's always changing. It's always kind of not only introducing you to new areas, but it's giving you a new weapon, where the early days you start out with either just like the frying pan or the bat with the nails in it, and it's pretty straightforward. By the end, you're using guns, you're riding on barrels and knocking into things, you're riding on creatures. Every single area gives you a different thing, and a lot of them just have that old school video game challenge. Like there's like a hoverboard lava race that I, once again, when I was a kid I did it, and now I did it again, had to play it a million times and get it absolutely perfectly to beat it. There's so many also downright iconic moments. Like, even if you've never played this game, you've probably heard of the Great Mighty Pooh. If you didn't, this probably sounds really weird, but look it up. It's really inspired, really, really well done. And not only does it have those big memorable moments, for me personally, a lot of the smaller moments are really memorable. To the point where a lot of these things have become inside jokes with the few friends I still have from the Nintendo 64 day. Like the money, the money you collect has a cigar in its mouth and little eyeballs, and it's got like a wise guy voice, and that's like those lines that the money shouts. And my friend Andrew and I have been reciting to each other now for like 20 years, which is really sad when you think about it, but it's great. There's jokes about like gameplay mechanics and backtracking and context sensitive buttons, which is another incredible line that the game kind of opens with, down to just like memorable little goofy characters like the paint bucket and the paintbrush and the pitchfork that don't really stick around very long but have a lasting impact just because of their line delivery, the stupid shit they say, where it works in that specific moment in time in the game. And even though the game is busted a bit, it's still worth playing through. The Nintendo 64 version is really busted. Just mechanically, it's a little hard to control. The combat's really wacky. The aiming is all messed up. The Xbox version does kind of improve it, but there's still little video game sins that we've now gotten over. Like the swimming is god awful, and it's like you press a button to go underwater, but then the button to go down or up then flips. It's like, why do things like that? Like we've gotten past that, which is nice, but you know, sometimes you go back and you play these games and you get a taste of how things were, and you appreciate how much better things are now. One thing that I think is better than a lot of games we have now is the music. It's damn good in a lot of ways. There's some really catchy, like memorable tunes that have been stuck in my head ever since I first played the game, which is nuts. There's only a few games that really sit on that level in my broken brain. But the thing I'm trying to get at here is that Conker has heart. All those things come together to just be a memorable, charming game, and one that I don't think we would see today in a lot of ways. I don't mean necessarily in the way that, you know, there's cancel culture, humor is a constantly moving needle, or any of those hotter topics. I just think a lot of people, myself included, have kind of aged out of that style of humor. I can still go back and appreciate it, but I don't necessarily seek it out in my day-to-day. I loved South Park. I loved The Simpsons. I don't really watch them anymore. I don't keep up with them. But the episodes of The Simpsons I grew up with, the moments in South Park I grew up with, I keep for me forever, and they've kind of established my humor going forward, and my appreciation for humor kind of like has evolved from that. But because of that, does that make sense? So I don't need a Conker sequel or anything like that. They tried something with Project Spark back in the day. I didn't play that, but I don't really think they could replicate what they had here in terms of how Rare was at the time, how this game came together, the people involved, the intentions involved, the things they parodied. I don't know if it would 100% work today, and it doesn't matter. The most important thing is that it's still available to play. I literally just was like, oh yeah, shit. And I bought it on Xbox, because on the marketplace it was like $10, and I replayed it. The Live and Reloaded remake doesn't really have all the multiplayer features anymore, but it looks pretty good. At the time, I remember thinking like, wow, they really, really, really remade this game. Now, looking back, it's just kind of like some good fuzzy textures and particle effects and water effects and stuff like that. But still, it's good enough. It's not dated enough where you're gonna not want to play it or look at it. Obviously, I'm coming here making this video because I really recommend it, dude. If you haven't played it, or if you want to see where I'm coming from, what I grew up playing, or maybe whether you're older than me or younger than me, maybe you missed this boat, I highly recommend checking it out, especially if you like British humor, if you like any like Monty Python style stuff, if you are a fan of like that crass, rude, gross humor of something like South Park, because this game definitely has some things in it that, you know, and most importantly, if you're into stuff like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, just in terms of like that wacky, fun cartoon nature, if you can still smile when there's stupid poop jokes, or you can still get a chuckle out of somebody getting bonked on the head with an anvil, this game is for you. Anyway, Conker's Bad Fur Day for Nintendo 64, or Conker Live and Reloaded, the remake for the original Xbox. Then now you can still play it on the new Xbox platforms. Hasn't lost its charm. Either way, wherever you play it, highly recommend checking it out. I'm going to spare you impersonating all of the little jokes and quips and character voices, because I do that in my daily life, and people hate me for it. So I'm going to go. All I want to say is if you enjoy what I'm trying to do here, just talk about stuff I like. Clicking that like button does help me. I know I sound like a broken record by now, but thank you if you've been coming around here. If you're new around these parts, maybe subscribe. I only put out a video once a week or so. I'm not going to spam you. But thanks for watching. I'm Jake Baldino. Subscribe because video games.